is dedicated to vulnerability, resilience, and sustainable development. In this session with us, we have 9 scholars representing different parts of the Asia to present their studies focused on vulnerability, resilience, and sustainable development. Meanwhile, I would also like to inform you all that this Zoom session is being recorded, and the recorded session will be made available on request. Please mention to us if you have any objection or so. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce 2 dignitaries of this session. Their presence as a co-chair in the session is adding more value, and we are so much honored and delighted to have both of them with us. Now, moving along to our session, please join me to welcome our co-chair. Our co-chair of the session is Professor Yonariza. Professor Yonariza is a professor in forest resource management at Andalas University, Padang, West Sumatra, Indonesia. He obtained his PhD in Natural Resource Management NRM from Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, Thailand in 2007. His research interest includes decentralization of forest management, forest restoration, ecosystem service, and natural resource management from aspects of legal pluralism and commonly property study. Currently, he is serving as a vice director at postgraduate program at Andalas University. Welcome to the session, sir. We are so much honored and privileged to have you with us.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Now, I would like to introduce our next co-chair of the session, Dr. Ken Van Nguyen. Dr. Ken is a senior lecturer at Research Center for Rural Development, Nguyen University, Vietnam National University, SCM City. He is also the ex-director of Research Center for Rural Development of Nguyen University. Dr. Ken is an honorary senior lecturer at the Fenner School of Environment and Society at the Australian National University, and adjunct senior research fellow at University of New England, Australia, and senior research associate at Health and Agriculture Policy Research Institute, University of Economics, SCM City. We are so much honored and we are so much delighted to have you with us, Dr. Ken. Welcome to the sessions.
Thank you.
Now, our respected co-chairpersons will take over the session and they will call the presenter for their presentations. Participants having questions regarding the presentation can post their questions in the chat box, as we'll have the discussion and Q&A session at the end of all presentations. Our co-chair will also facilitate the Q&A session and will provide their expert opinions on the subject matter that will be discussed during the Q&A session. Over to you, co-chair, for further proceeding of the session. Over to you, co-chairs.
Thank you, Ganesh. Yeah, good morning, good day, good afternoon. Maybe some of you good evening. Thank you for joining this technical session number 11. I'm with Dr. Ken. We're chairing this session. So as announced, the presentation will be presented as a recorded video, one by one, according to the line of the presentation. And at the end, we have discussion. At any time, you can ask question in the chat room. Okay, Dr. Nguyen, can I call you Dr. Nguyen or Dr. Kian Van Nguyen? Sorry. Please, you have something to add, to announce before we start?
Good morning, afternoon, evening. Thank you, Professor, for introduction. Yes, my name, you can call me King all the time. Yes, we held, I think we held about 8 minutes for each presenter. Yeah, and then now you can chair. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just go together, okay? So we just follow the line in the schedule. So please, moderator, you can start showing video presentation by Jati Mardianto. Do you hear the voice? I don't hear. I don't know.
Hello everyone, my name is Jati Mardiatno. I am from Universitas Gadjah Mada, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. In this opportunity, I would like to present our paper with the title, A Proposal for Disaster Risk Management in the Local Level, Lesson Learned from Earthquake-Prone Area in Sengon Village, Central Java, Indonesia. Indonesia is a country prone to earthquakes, and Java is the most densely populated and infrastructure island. The southern region of Java Island is the most prone area to earthquakes. Our research location is focused in the Sengon Village, Klaten Regency, Central Java Province. This village was destroyed by the magnitude 5.9 earthquake on May 27, 2006. That's why, in order to reduce the earthquake risk, it is very important to increase the capacity of the local community. It is also in line with the program of our National Disaster Management Agency. That's why this paper aims to propose a model for disaster risk management in the local level, as in a village. Sengon Village is located nearby Opak fault line as the source for the earthquake here. This village has 16 hamlets, and the area of the village approximately 233 hectares. According to our National Disaster Management Agency program, this village is also in the process of being developed into a disaster resilient village. That's why, to support that program, we conduct this research and we use some tools for data acquisition, such as maps, aerial photos, voice recorder, FGD guides, and stationaries. We conducted participatory mapping techniques through FGD activities. We also interview some key informants in Sengon Village, and also we interview some people who experienced the 2006 earthquake. Participatory mapping is used to strengthen the role of the community in decision-making as to design a disaster-resilient community. Furthermore, we also conducted SWOT analysis in order to support the planning of evacuation path infrastructure and to assess community preparedness. The SWOT analysis results can be used as one of the basis for preparing standard operating procedure or SOP for earthquake preparedness. These are some results. Based on our finding, there are 8 communities groups concerning to disaster risk reduction in this village. In between 2018 to 2020, all 8 communities group integrated in the Sengon Village Resilient Village group here. And this group also include the family welfare coaching group, or we always call as PKK. On the right side, you can see the result of resilient village assessment based on the category from BNPB, or our National Disaster Management Agency. Based on the category, we can see that almost all categories can be fulfilled by the village. except for the program for capacity building. That's why we focus on the program to increase the local capacity in this village here. You can see in this slide the result of the SWOT analysis. You can see some strengths, some weaknesses, some opportunities, and also some threats here. We can see that there are some support from the local authorities as the opportunities. And also you can see the potential conflicts in that location as the threat in that village here. We can also identify some village actors who responsible to conduct measures during pre-disaster, onset disaster, or post-disaster. You can see here there are commander, health officer, security team, evacuation team, and logistic team. All teams have each responsibility during pre-disaster, during onset disaster, and post-disaster here. You can see here that all people in the village also can be facilitated in order to do some disaster risk management to earthquake here. You can see there are some posters also that the local also have the capability to identify the evacuation route path, also the potential location for the shelters, as you can see in the map in the left below side in this slide here. And then on the right side, you can see the standard operational procedure to reduce the earthquake disaster in that village, and also that SOP legalized by the head of the village after reviewed by the Regional Disaster Management Agency of the Klaten Regency. For the conclusion, we can conclude that Sengon village has enough capacity for reducing the risk to earthquake because they are experienced to earthquake before in 2006 here. And then the existence of resilient village group in that village can be a good social capital to maintain the sustainability of DRR program in that village here. Thank you very much for your kind attention. In this opportunity, I would like also to thanks to the Sengon village government, to the Regional Disaster Management Agency or BPBD of Klaten Regency, and also to the Directorate of the Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Republic of Indonesia. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you. Please go on, Dr. Ken.
Thank you. Next one. Sorry, I need to open. Next, I think I wish to invite Dr. Kini Hemachandra to present papers about a validated framework for women empowerment in disaster risk governance. Thank you.
I think Asita go first before Kikini.
Asita, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry because I missed. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry that I couldn't repeat. I wish to invite Asita Da Silva to present a paper about understanding the importance and identification of mechanism for better iteration of community-based knowledge into disaster risk assessment. Thank you.
A very good day to you. My name is Asita De Silva, and I will be presenting under the topic of understanding the importance and identification of mechanisms for better integration of community-based knowledge into disaster risk assessment. We all know that natural disasters have an increasing trend all over the world. With the influence of climate change, intensity and the frequency of hydrometeorological hazards have significantly increased. At the same time, there are significant amount of disaster risk reduction and mitigation projects implemented all around the world, yet the impact from disasters remain high. Why is that? One key reason is the lack of understanding of the risk posed by natural hazards before planning those projects and strategies. There are a range of disaster risk assessment methods developed all over the world, yet most of them are based on holistic and universal perspective. So they may overlook the small features of that local context which enhances the risk. As per the cartoon highlights, if we are unable to assess the risk accurately, the solutions that we are proposing may not be the appropriate one to handle that situation. So in this study, the research gap is lack of microenvironmental perspective in disaster risk assessment methods. So who knows about disasters? Of course, experts can express and understand and identify the mechanisms and processes and behaviors of disasters based on their knowledge. Yet, they may sometimes overlook the local environmental conditions. So who knows about disasters? The aim of my study is to understand how important the community-based knowledge in disaster risk assessment and to identify the mechanisms to better integrate community-based knowledge into disaster risk assessment. So this study is based on a case study focusing on Sri Lanka and based on two disasters as in landslides and floods. Sri Lanka is located in the tropical zone and affected by two monsoon seasons, and there are floods and landslides more frequently, almost all the years. So as a tool of data collection, I'm using expert interviews. I have conducted 12 expert interviews among the experts who are working on disaster risk reduction in the country. And I'm using a thematic analysis to extract the key themes from the collected interviews. And as the tool of data analysis, I'm using Nvivo. At the end, based on a classification, I will identify the orders, the second and first order themes, and also the key thematic areas derived from the results. Last section, I would like to focus on the import. Most of these experts agreed on that the community-based knowledge is significantly important when identifying and understanding the microenvironmental factors that influences the risk. So the risk assessment methods which we have at the moment, they are based on holistic parameters, universal parameters. So we have the generalizations, and sometimes we have to interpolate the parameters like rainfall and soil even. So then it may not depict true picture. And also it is important to detect the temporal changes of that local environment. We all know that with these climate change impact and the influence of these extreme events, the local environments are changing rapidly. Not only that, but also due to the anthropogenic activities, we change our local environment almost every day. So these changes has to be detected and they can influence the risk. And also to understand the impact of extreme events in local environment. So we know that there are extreme events, but how they behave within that local environment is a fact that we have to integrate into our risk assessments. And also then at the end, identify the local knowledge of identifying the risk and coping mechanisms that can be adapted as mitigation strategies. So they do have ways of identifying these risks, or these areas have high risks because of these reasons. So we need to get that knowledge into our risk assessment as well. And sometimes they know how to cope for these disasters, sometimes better than experts. So therefore, the community-based knowledge is important. But there are some issues when it comes to integration. So one is that the influence of the dominating groups. So they can be political or religious or based on the caste or the culture, but they are the ones who always speaks and they don't let others speak. So we have to be careful with that. And then the influence of the personal flavors. So there can be exaggerations, there can be misinterpretations, and they may hide the truth if there's no favor, if that is in favor of them, it's going to do some harm for them. And then there's a lack of validation mechanisms. Some group say something, another group say something else, and there's another group saying totally opposite to what they have said. So we need a proper. But when it comes to integration, I think strengthening of bottom-up approach in disaster risk assessment is like all the experts agreed on. So there's a top-bottom approach where our experts design all these risk assessment mechanisms. But if we can integrate the bottom-up approach, so that will strengthen disaster risk assessment process. It should be an academic exercise plus reality. So in order to get this reality, we can have the participatory risk assessment approaches. Or I would say that we can combine a hybrid approach, right, where we have experts and then we have the communities and then we can assess the risk. So we can have the reality or the real picture. So in conclusion, understanding the microenvironmental characteristics which enhances disaster risk is important in productive disaster management. Therefore, integrating community-based knowledge will provide a strong basis towards identify the absolute risk for better planning and implementation to develop sustainable solutions. So this is my presentation, and thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Asita De Silva. So yeah, we just go ahead, Dr. Kin, with the next presentation. Let us invite Dr. Kinkini Hemachandra. Is going to present a validated framework for women's empowerment in disaster risk governance. Please show the next video.
I am Kinkini Hemachandra, representing Global Disaster Resilience Centre, University of Huddersfield, UK. My topic is a validated framework for women's empowerment in disaster risk governance. According to the first diagram, women and girls have been disproportionately affected by disasters. And several researchers have identified the reasons behind their high vulnerabilities due to physical conditions, socio-economic, as well as socio-cultural beliefs. In addition, another set of researchers have found like minimum representation and leadership in disaster risk reduction decision making as one of the reasons for their higher vulnerability. As a result, UNISDR has already confirmed that women's voice must be heard if we want to achieve a disaster resilient world by 2030. After decades of advocacy, the role of women in disaster risk reduction has been established at the global policy platforms as shown in the diagram. Not only at the global level, even at the national level, there are several examples where the role of women in disaster risk reduction activities can be identified. Say, for example, with the latest COVID situation, some leading women leaders have demonstrated their ability in controlling as well as reducing disaster risk reduction. However, a significant number of women have not been involved in disaster risk reduction decision-making process. In other words, women are less empowered in disaster risk reduction decision making. This has been identified the gap or the research problem for conducting this PhD study. Accordingly, the study's aim was set as to propose a framework to empower women in disaster risk governance. The study was conducted in Sri Lanka due to its higher disaster profile as well as high vulnerabilities among women caused by disasters as well as lower status of women empowerment in the country. The initial data collection was started by conducting a literature review. Based on the literature review, several interviews were conducted with expert as well as case study interviews. 3 case study districts were selected based on the disaster profile, based on the socio-economic differences, as well as the number of women who were affected by the previous disasters. Accordingly, case study interviews were conducted with the officers who are working in the disaster preparedness system in Sri Lanka. Data analysis were conducted as a thematic analysis and presented its results in a cognitive maps and some other tables. Finally, a focus group discussion was conducted as the validation process. Accordingly, the study revealed 14 different reasons why women's empowerment in disaster risk governance is important. After establishing the role of women in disaster risk governance, the study evaluated what is the present status of women empowerment in disaster risk governance within the Sri Lankan context. Accordingly, the study found that most women officers engage in post-disaster response measures. Similarly, they engage in implementation stage rather than decision-making stage. And women officers were appointed as a solution where male officers cannot be appointed. And when it comes to the lower level, more women officers can be seen compared to the upper level. For example, all 25 district disaster management coordination units are operated and headed by male officers. After examining the present status of women empowerment in disaster risk governance within the Sri Lankan disaster preparedness system, the study investigated what are the challenges affecting their lower level of empowerment. Accordingly, all the challenges identified through expert interviews and case study interviews, the challenges were categorized into key 6 categories. The categories are socio-cultural challenges. Under socio-cultural challenges, there are 10 different aspects were identified. Legal policy challenges, 7 aspects identified. Political challenges, 5 different specific challenges were identified. Individual challenges, 14 specific challenges were identified. 15 organizational related challenges were identified, and finally another 5 job specific challenges were identified. As mentioned earlier, all the identified challenges were matched with the suggestions given by both experts as well as case study interviews. So this is an illustration of a cognitive map which was conducted in one particular district. So you can see the blue color boxes are representing key categories of challenges, where the green circles are representing specific challenges under each and every category, where the yellow boxes are representing all the suggestions given by the experts and case study interviews in addressing the identified challenges. After further analyzing all the suggestions identified through the study, the final framework was developed. The framework consists with 4 different interventions. Individual, where the women officers who should take responsibilities to empower themselves in the disaster risk governance. Community intervention, where the community should take some measures to assure women empowerment in disaster risk governance. From the organizational point of view, key activities to be performed by the organizational point of view to assure the women empowerment in disaster risk governance, and finally, legislative intervention to be introduced to support and assure women empowerment. If we can implement the suggestions made by the framework, in the future, we can achieve women empowerment in disaster risk governance. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The next presentations is Azan Sakar present topics about geopolymer from Greek, a study of an alternative material for ordinary Portland cement. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well during these tough times. My name is Ishan Thakur, and I am a student of Pandit Deen Dayal Energy University in the Department of Civil Engineering. Today, I will be presenting on the topic of geopolymer, a study of an alternative material for ordinary Portland cement. And my abstract ID is DRSD 21_200. OPC is most commonly used in India for construction of welding, but its production results in the release of a lot of CO2. The rate at which the carbon dioxide is discharged during the production of OPC is 1:1, that is, for each 1 kilogram of OPC produced, 1 kilogram of CO2 will be emitted. An alternative which is eco-friendly and also as strong as concrete is geopolymer. The name geopolymer was found by French professor Davidovitz in 1978 to represent a broad range of materials characterized by networks of inorganic molecules. It depends on thermally activated natural materials like metakaolinite or industrial byproducts like fly ash or slag to provide the source of silicon or aluminum. The cement production generated carbon dioxide, which pollutes the atmosphere. Thermal industry produces a waste called fly ash, which is simply dumped on earth, occupies largest areas. So, in order to save environment, geopolymer can be used efficiently and effectively. Now, what is fly ash? Fly ash is the fine particulate waste material produced by pulverized coal-based thermal power station. It is an environment pollutant. It is nowadays used in cement, concrete, and other cement-based applications in India. As per IS 3812-2003, the genetic name of the waste produced due to burning of coal or lignite in the boiler of a thermal power plant is pulverized fuel ash. It can be found as fly ash, bottom ash, pond ash, or mound ash. Classification of fly ash. According to IS 3812-1981, fly ash is defined as grade 1, which is derived from bituminous coal having fractions of SiO2, Al2O3, and Fe2O3 more than 70%, whereas grade 2 is derived from lignite coal having fractions of SiO2, Al2O3, and Fe2O3 more than 50%. As per ASTM C618, it is categorized as Class C and Class F. Class C produced from combustion of lignite or subbituminous coal having calcium oxide greater than 10%, while Class F is bituminous or anthracite coal having CaO less than 10%. Based on boiler operations, it is classified as low temperature and high temperature. Now, low temperature is derived from the bituminous coal burning below the temperature of 900 degrees Celsius, whereas high temperature is derived from burning of less than 1000 degrees Celsius. Chemical properties of fly ash. The fly ash that we used during this process was obtained from thermal power station located in Gandhinagar. Depending on that, we can deduce that this fly ash is of grade 1 class F low temperature fly ash. In order to achieve the same strength as cement, fly ash is added with activators. Now, what are activators? Fly ash and cement have similar properties, but they lack silicate and calcium content, which results in improper heat of hydration and increases the curing period. To balance that, activators are added and chemical compositions to improve the mechanical properties and chemical properties of the geopolymer. For this study, the activators that have been used by us are sodium hydroxide, sodium silicate, and combination of both. Curing. Unlike conventional concrete, which requires water curing, geopolymer requires higher temperatures for curing and water curing is not required. Therefore, three processes are adapted for curing of geopolymer, that is heat curing, steam curing, and ambient curing. Now the method we used was as per IS 3812. Fly ash from thermal power plant from Gandhinagar was used. The ratio of fly ash to fine aggregate was taken as 1:3. Water binder ratio, that is the total mass of water to mass of fly ash, should be between 0.27 to 0.35. Total activator of fly ash ratio has been taken as 0.45. Ratio of alkaline activators NaOH to fly ash is taken as 0.13 for cube casting. Ratio of alkali activators for Na2SiO3 for fly ash is taken as 0.32 for cube casting. Ratio of sodium silicate to hydroxide silicate shall be in the range of 1.5 to 2.2. Cubes were casted of cement mortar, cement concrete, geopolymer concrete with different activator combinations. After a long time, uh, first of all, cement mortar cubes were casted, and later on, cement concrete cubes were casted. And the strength was compared between cement mortar, geopolymer, and cement concrete and geopolymer. At first, the mortar cubes was tested for compressive strength and flexural strength. It was found that even after ambient curing due to atmospheric conditions being moist on account of winter, it took about 35 days before the cubes could be tested. After the test was conducted, it was found that cubes having single activators did not show enough strength as compared to cement mortar. However, combined activators showed promising results, and it showed that compressive strength of geopolymer with combined activators provide 1.8 times more strength than that of cement mortar. After that, cement concrete cubes were casted and tested for the same. As atmospheric condition changes, so does the curing temperatures, which is why the time of curing decreased from 35 to 29 days, and the result obtained was same as cement mortar. Cubes having single activators did not show enough strength, but cube having combined activators shows 1.7 times more strength than that of cement concrete. Thus, from the above test, we can conclude that geopolymer provides more strength as compared to ordinary Portland cement. And these are some of the references that we have used for the research. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Isan Takar. Those participant want to ask question, please, you can write on the chat room. Okay, we just continue presentation until the end, and then we follow up with the discussion. Let me invite again. Let me invite next presenter, Dr. Rivia Jat. Yeah, I hope I pronounce your name correctly. Please.
Hello everyone, hope you all are safe and doing well. My name is Divyajat. I am a BTech student at Pandit Deen Dayal Energy University in Department of Civil Engineering. Today, I'll be presenting on mechanical behavior of geopolymer in addition with fiber reinforced materials, a review. Alternatives for environmental friendly materials in construction industry have become primary objective nowadays. One such alternative is geopolymer, which consists of fly ash alkaline activators such as sodium silicate and aggregates. Various research work have been done on geopolymer with natural as well as inorganic fibers like glass, cotton, sisal, coconut, carbon have shown greater mechanical properties when compared with OPC and geopolymer composite without fiber. Fiber addition, irrespective of the type, have shown catastrophic behavior, resulting in ductile failure and enhances the toughness of matrix. Thus, this review paper summarizes the mechanical properties like tensile, compressive, flexural, and toughness of different type of fibers as well as their durability by various researchers. To enhance mechanical properties of geopolymer, various fibers such as carbon, basalt, glass, cotton, PVA have been used as reinforcement. Some properties of fibers have been listed here. First, let's look at basalt fiber. They are inorganic fiber which are obtained from molten basalt rock having high strength, high temperature resistance, good stability, and chemical resistance made it suitable to use as reinforcement in geopolymer composite. It is also cheap when compared with carbon fiber. It has been used for bridge strengthening, retrofitting work. Next up we have is carbon fiber, which is widely being studied by researchers due to its high strength, high modulus, low thermal expansion, and good electrical properties. Compared with all other fibers, it can withstand at elevated temperature. Moving ahead is glass fiber. It shows excellent strength as compared with basalt. Application includes various types of roofing, panels, and interior use. The optimum fiber content is found out to be 2% based on various research. And PVA, polyvinyl alcohol fiber, shows good bonding with cement matrix. It improves performance of geopolymer composite due to micro bridging and pulling action. Talking about mechanical properties based on several research papers studied, we have summarized the strength of various fiber reinforced geopolymer. Here is the graphical representation of compressive strength showing maximum and minimum strength of fiber composite. The minimum strength is the strength of composite without fiber addition. Due to less delimitation occurred between fiber and matrix, cotton fiber shows the highest compressive strength as seen in the graph, which is laid horizontally with 8.3% of fiber content, followed by carbon, PVA, and basalt. Irrespective of the type of fiber, there has been an increase in compressive strength. Moreover, compressive strength is affected by parameters such as molarity of activators, fiber content, degree of temperature, and fiber layers. Moving on to next mechanical strength, that is flexural strength. The brittle nature of cement-based composite can be overcome by adding fiber. Here, maximum strength is obtained by carbon fiber. It is due to more friction generation between fiber and geopolymer matrix during the fiber pullout. With addition of fibers, an increase in strength is seen, although it is more prominent in case of basalt than glass fiber. Other parameters such as fiberation and elevated temperature also affect strength of composite. Further, we have flexural toughness to represent the energy absorption capacity of composite. High ductility is seen due to fiber pullout, fiber bridging, fiber fracture. With increasing fiber content, higher flexural toughness is seen. Next is split tensile strength, which shows the maximum amount of stress a material without fracture when stressed can withstand. Studies reveal that tensile strength mainly influenced by alkali activator dosage and fiber volume. Here, the graphical representation shows control specimen without fiber, basalt fiber, and glass fiber taken from a study. It is clear from the graph that with an increase in fiber content, that is 1%, basalt fiber shows higher strength. Also, figure shows specimen taken from a study between control specimen and glass fiber, which shows behavior after split tensile strength. Hence, addition of fiber resulted in ductile failure. To conclude, it can be said that significant improvement in mechanical strength is seen irrespective of fiber types and contents. Reaching up to certain fiber content, flexural and compressive strength decreases. Fibers, in addition with geopolymer, showed ductile failure, and different morphologies in the fracture surface of the composite are seen with every type of fiber used due to fiber pullout, fiber bridging, crack propagation, and matrix fracture. From this study, it can be said that basalt fiber as well as glass fiber have shown greater compressive, tensile, and flexural strength, followed by carbon fiber. Carbon fiber, when used, has shown remarkable strength when used in elevated temperature up to 1100 degrees Celsius. Hence, fiber-reinforced geopolymer have shown significant increase in mechanical properties and can be used as an alternative for ordinary Portland cement. Here are some references which I have been considered during my study. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we go on with the next presentation.
The next presentation is Nigel Donuts. Present assessing risk and adaptation option across building type and neighborhood in the city and urbanizing regions of Vietnam. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time may be when you listen to my presentation. My name is Nigel Downs from the College of Environment and Natural Resources, Cantor University in Vietnam. And today I would like to welcome you to my short talk over my paper, which outlines an approach to assess the risks and adaptation options across building types and neighborhoods in the cities and urbanizing regions of Vietnam. Let's start with a little background. Urban areas in Southeast Asia are recognized as facing multiple shocks and stresses from both natural disasters and climate change. But why Vietnam? Well, Vietnam has a diverse geography and a long history of coping with climate-related hazards. It is often hit by typhoons, landslides, flooding, and drought events. Here you can see that the impacts are spatially diverse across the length of the country. Furthermore, most global comparative studies rank Vietnam as one of the most vulnerable nations to current and future climate change impacts. The IPCC considers it a hotspot of key future climate impacts and vulnerabilities from an Asian perspective. Why is this so? Well, with a coastline of over 3,000 kilometers in length, Vietnam is particularly susceptible to future sea level rise. Urbanization in Vietnam is predominantly coastally oriented also, with a majority of the population living in 5 major urban centers. In fact, 70% of its population lives below 10 meters above sea level rise, and the majority live in 2 mega-urban deltas, the Red River Delta to the north and the Mekong Delta to the south. Here you can see the key economic regions in the country. These are hotspots of urbanization and urban growth, with young populations moving to these regions in search of employment and better opportunities. Currently, Vietnam has an urbanization rate of 37%. This should reach 50% by the year 2040. In these circumstances, there is a real need to adapt this future urbanization to the current and future risks. However, if we are going to adapt to future risks successfully, we need to both understand the current development and climate challenges urban areas in Vietnam experiences. We need to have an understanding of the current and urban development and modernization patterns, redevelopment, densification, and urban sprawl. We need an understanding of the current primary climate change impacts and hazard profiles. And we need to have an understanding of the secondary climate change impacts and long-term urban development challenges. It's also important to understand that climate change will enhance hazards and impacts and show distinct spatial differences. They will be felt to different degrees in different areas, being highly local and scale dependent. Therefore, we have a complex, interdisciplinary and multi-thematic problem, which requires an approach which integrates data from many sources and yet overcomes problems of data scarcity, quality, compatibility and scale. We also need to understand the best scale to carry out assessments and at which scale to provide actionable results and plan and adaptation guidance. National or regional provincial level results may be useful for highlighting general climate risks and funding needs, but adaptation responses often require evidenced and local-based results with strong operational and planning insights. To address this need, I have been working on the detailed mapping of Vietnamese urban structure types at an urban block level. This allows me to characterize and partition the city into spatially meaningful and thematically meaningful units and to provide a uniform spatial framework for planning assessments to be carried out. Various climate risks to cities in Vietnam have been assessed in the past. Previous assessments were often limited, however, to purely future scenarios of climatic hazards and also undertaken at a city-wide scale which neglects the final structural and socio-economical differences. The function of an urban structure type approach, however, is to spatially link the biophysical exposure to climate hazards with a social sensitivity, socio-economic sensitivity of people. The ultimate goal is to reduce exposures and to reduce sensitivities and enable the review of existing plans and policies, the control of development in high-risk areas, climate-conscious urban regeneration, and climate-conscious new development. Now, if we look at one such city here, for an example, the urban core of Ho Chi Minh City, we see the urban environment is made up of a distinct mosaic of buildings and open spaces. Understanding of these can see how the different structures are affected by global and local climate change and how they themselves affect local and global climate change through environmental impact indicators, exposure and resilience indicators, and even energetic and climate efficiency indicators. We can run simple assessments and ask, what is exposed? Does this exposure matter? What response options to the impact to reduce the vulnerability are available? Coming on to some results. Here you can see an official land use plan map for Ho Chi Minh City, and next to it you can see the urban structure type map, which I compiled for a city. You can already see the difference in information quality, where before in the plan was just the term urban residential or public space. You can see in the urban structure type map a higher definition of land uses and functions. The official plan itself only displays the pure designation of land uses. The inherent quantities of environmental significance or the exposure or resilience of areas and structures or the actual density or even the rail utilization are not illustrated. In conclusion, I hope I have been able to provide you a good overview of my paper today. I would like to add that the urban structure type approach, map for Vietnamese cities, concretely links weather-related and climate change impacts to the urban environment in a downscale manner. This provides a substantial area-wide databases for future urban monitoring and climate change assessments, but it also facilitates the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary communication, providing a common spatial working framework. And finally, this ensures and proposes climate change adaptation measures are easily integrated into existing planning frameworks. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Nigel Donis. So we go on to Nguyen T. Yulin. Yeah. She is going to talk about perception of climate change and farmers' choices of community-based adaptation method. Case study in central of Vietnam. Please show the video.
Hello everyone. Today I would like to introduce my studies focused on perception of climate change and farmer choice of community-based adaptation methods, a case study in Central Vietnam. We are two researchers from University of Economics, Huế University, Vietnam. Our presentation had 4 parts: introduction, methodology, results, and conclusion and discussions. Firstly, I would like to introduce briefly introductions. As you know, Vietnam is very vulnerable to climate change and climate variability due to a combination of climatic, geographic factor, and socio-economic structure. In the research of climate change impact on agriculture sector, it is warning that without adaptation, Vietnamese rice production might suffer a decreasing by 3.4 until 6.7% of productivity in 2050. Increasing stormwater intrusions pose a high risk and rice crop failures, especially in combination with drought conditions. The community-based adaptation solutions have increasingly been promoted as the solutions are more aligned with the livelihood, financial and social conditions of farmers. Our research has 3 objectives. The first, understanding farmer perception of climate change and stormwater intrusions. Secondly, investigate the determinant of farmer choice of community-based adaptation methods to cope with stormwater intrusions. And the last one, recommending the policy implications to enhance community-based stormwater intrusion adaptations. For the methodology, first I would like to introduce the study size. We decided to choose 13 Huy province located in the center of Vietnam. In this province, 6% of more than 84,000 hectare paddyland is affected by stormwater intrusions. Within this, the district of Quang Dien was selected as the first study areas, given its high proportion of paddy field affected by stormwater intrusion, 13%. For the data collection, the secondary data collected from the literature review and the primary data collected from the survey face-to-face. 3 communes were randomly from Quang Dien district respect to 3 levels of stormwater intrusion, mild, moderate, and high. The total sample is 390 rice farmers and were chosen randomly from the list provided by the Rice Farmer Cooperative. For conceptual frameworks, the farmer perception of an adaptation process. Farmer perception of climate change is demonstrated of being associated with experience, thus a of household has experience and knowledge of climate change. The adaptation of climate change is 2-step process in which farmers are firstly conscious of climate change before respond to climate through adaptation. However, climate change is not always the main drivers, and it's the reason why it needs to examine the perception of climate change of farmers before discovering the adaptation strategies. About the factors shaping climate change perception of farmers, climate change literature records us the important factor that's including household characteristics, year of farm experience, farm size, etc. And it is noted that education also has a positive correlation with the perception of the farmer about the climate change. For the analytical tool, we use SPSS and Stata to running the descriptive frequency and logic model. In this study, we use multinomial logic model to investigate the determinant of farmer adaptation choice. in which we focus on marginal effects. And here is the result. For the perceptions, only 78% of farmers know about climate change, but 96% of farmers know about stormwater intrusions. For the disagree or agree with the symptom of climate change and stormwater intrusion, farmers totally agree, or only it colder in winter, farmer in the neutrals. For the search of information, mainly farmers depend on the neighbor and relative to get the information about climate change. And then from cooperative, from government, and the last one is from multimedia. In our study area, only 40% of farmers apply the community-based adaptation methods, include 4 main methods: apply new variety, streams, planting, vegetable and local fish production, in which apply new variety rice. Thus, farmer convert gen to the new variety that's more sun tolerance, account 50% of the total farmer who adapt one method. And for the variable in multinomial logic model, we have 3 groups: the farm side, the family side, education, age, and farming experience belong to the farmer characteristics. Percentage of damaged land, farm size, position of land plots belong to farm characteristics, and the rest belong to institutional environment. And here is the result. As you see on the table, the result shows us the farming experience have strongly impacts on the probability of choosing 4 adaptation methods. For the farm characteristic, the percentage of damaged land and the position of land plots also positive impacts on the probability of choosing adaptation methods. For the institutional environment, being member of Women Union and asset training course, it 2 variables that strongly impact on the probability of choosing one adaptation method. For conclusions, we have 5-point conclusions. Thus, only 40% of farmers applied one adaptation method, and farming experience have significant impact on choice of adaptations. Farm characteristics strongly impact on the choice of adaptation methods, and study revealed that institutional factors like training costs or being women's union have positive impacts. We have 3 policy implications. First, policymakers have to focus on setting up official channels that can provide updated information. Policy intervention encourage farmers participating more in organizations and reduce the barrier to access the public credit and participating training costs. That's all the results. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Dr.
Thank you. And the next presenter is Dr. Tarika Fernando to present reviews of flood hazards and risk management strategies, past, present, and the future challenges in the South Asian region, particularly in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
A review of flood hazard and risk management strategies, past, present, and future challenges in the South Asian region, particularly in Sri Lanka. I am Engineer Tharika Fernando. Together with Engineer Janga Samarasinghe, we present our case study. Here are the contents of our presentation. Each year, millions of families from different parts of the world are affected by natural disasters. Of all natural disasters, floods by far are the most hazardous, frequent, and widespread events throughout the world. According to World Meteorological Organization, it has been found that floods cause maximum damage. In addition to that, UNISDR stated annual floods of the world causing 662 billion USD dollars in damage since 1995. In South Asia, most of the townships, urban cities are located in popular flood risk areas. Urbanization associated with the fast-growing population in cities of South Asia have led to increasing unplanned and uncontrolled developments. These activities can increase the potential flood risks. The adverse impacts of the floods range from direct impact, such as loss of human lives, damage to properties, destruction of crops, loss of livestock, to indirect impacts such as spread of waterborne diseases, deterioration of drinking water quality. South Asia covers about 3.2 of the world land area and 10% of the Asia. On average, 12.6 of the global population is considered as poor. And in South Asia is 15.09, or in the other terms, 256.24 million people. Therefore, with financial burdens, a flood, like natural disasters, has a significant impact on South Asians. In this study, identifying the particular situations of flood in Sri Lanka, the structural measures have a certain design capacity. And in case of flood levels exceed, there is a possibility of failure and the damage could be disastrous. Therefore, non-structural approaches are very important to promote settlement, reduce property damages, and ensure safety of well-being of the public. Over the years, number of deaths was significantly reduced in Sri Lanka due to floods. This study would be benefited for the countries with same financial and social context. South Asia comprises with 8 countries: Afghanistan, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Maldives, India, and Sri Lanka. From east to west, the annual precipitation decreases and turns towards a warm deserted climate. Given spatial varying topography, geography, and meteorological conditions, from north to south, east to west, floods of varying types occur, including fluvial floods, flash floods, floods due to snowmelt, glacial lake outburst floods, and coastal floods. The flood damages and economic losses of South Asia countries are enormously high due to the long-term direct and indirect impact on assets and production. Furthermore, comparative to the size of South Asian countries and GDP, flood losses are 15 times greater than the Organization for Economic and Cooperation Development countries. The below bar chart summarizes the differentiated impacts of each type of disaster accumulated over the past 40 years. Stated approximately 27 million people get affected annually by floods, cause an average of over $1 billion in annual losses.
Floods in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is located at the southern tip of Indian subcontinent. The geographical location governs the climate and subjected to Indian Ocean monsoon. Northeast monsoon from December to January, southwest monsoon from May to July bring the rain to Sri Lanka, and also these monsoons bring the floods to Sri Lanka, causing a huge damage in terms of lives and property. As in the figure, you can see the topographic climate zones and the population density distribution of Sri Lanka. Higher population density present in the low-lying areas in the wet zone. Therefore, many of the low-lying areas subjected to huge damage during the floods. Usually, Sri Lanka faces three main types of floods: fluvial floods, localized floods, and the coastal floods. The fluvial floods are the most common floods in Sri Lanka during the monsoon periods. The localized floods are happening in the urban context during the high precipitation events. The coastal floods are happening in the coast zones due to the cyclone-induced storm surges and the tsunami waves. Let's check about the flood mitigation and the legal framework practice in Sri Lanka. As you can see from these figures, the annual floods affect considerable amount of people and property. Therefore, to reduce the damages, the mitigation framework is required. There are mainly two types of strategies practiced in Sri Lanka: the structural measures and non-structural measures. To ensure the safety and the allocation of funds, a legal framework is established in Sri Lanka. These mitigation frameworks currently reduce the damages, but still we were unable to fully minimize the damages. That is because of the challenges and the improvements need to be made in the corresponding authorities. Some of the drawbacks observed in the prevailing system are as follows: plethora of policies, overlapping of the responsibilities and making confusions in the roles, lack of resources, human capacity and technical know-how for implementing the policies, some standard operation procedures not streamlined with the other departments, and poor maintenance of some structural measures. In order to improve the above systems, we can follow some of the methodologies practiced in OECD countries. Further improvements in the legal framework also required to ensure the safety of the nation. Some conclusions from our review paper are as follows. To realize the full potential of all the hazard maps, extend the coverage to all the river basins. Flood hazard mapping should be in the context of from 1:5,000 to 1:20,000 scale. Maps should be created for high and low probability. The detailed plan maps should be prepared with a lower return period, as in the 100-year and 10-year return periods would be better. Adhering respective structural and non-structural measures to mitigate the floods. As adhering to lot of structural methods need funding, non-structural methods would be ideal. Timely, accurate and reliable flood warning system would be beneficial for the nations to mitigate the floods. Thank you very much for your attention, and we hope you enjoy the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tarika, Fernando, and Khaled. We shall have two more presentation. And next, let's show the video by Idu Piatatilaki. Sorry.
Yeah, Professor Yonjara, like this is the last presentation. So we don't have presentation from Endong Purwati. So this is going to be our last presentation.
Event Endong Purwati? No more? Okay. Fine,
Yes, I'm
Ganesh. Okay, dear participant, presenter, and my co-chair, Dr. Rokin, I think we still have enough time for discussion. Before we go to discussion, so this particular thematic technical session very interesting since we still have problem with climate change which affect vulnerability. Yeah, and here community-based approach is one of the solution in disaster risk reduction management. And of course, in this case, we have to consider also social setting and community setting. And we still have problem with sustainability in agriculture production. especially civil engineering approach is also having some new insight that how the climate change also increase the vulnerability of this to disaster. Right. So Dr. Kian, you want to add something before we continue with discussion?
Yes, thank you, Professor.
Co-chairs, just a minute, co-chairs. Like we still have presentation from Edu, but we don't have the last presentation. So shall we proceed for the final presentation? Then we'll
Please
begin.
go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. We still have time. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Thank you, co-chair.
Dear session chair, all the panel members and all the participants, I'm Maidivesh P. Tilaka from the Faculty of Graduate Studies of the Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka. I would like to present our research under the topic Effects of Herbicides Application on the Sustainability of Tea Production in Sri Lanka. This research was funded by Rainforest Alliance, and this research was facilitated by Alliance for Sustainable Landscape Management. Let's move to look at the introduction. Concerning about tea, tea has become one of the most popular beverages in the world, and in Sri Lanka, tea is the most prominent commercial crop. However, in tea industry, there are so many challenges have been identified, and out of these challenges, weeds have been identified as one of the most prominent challenges. So, sustainable weed management is crucial to maintain a healthy crop yield in tea industry. So application of glyphosate is the widely used weed management method in Sri Lanka, but according to the experts, this has been investigated that environment and tea production could be vulnerable due to frequent application of herbicides in Sri Lanka. So this research was aimed to investigate the impacts of herbicides on the quality of soil and tea production. Now let's move to look at the objectives of this research. Concerning about the overall objective, overall objective is to assess the negative impacts of the herbicides on the soil quality and quality of tea in Sri Lanka. Concerning about the specific objectives are to assess quality of tea soils collected from herbicides applied and non-applied tea plantations, to assess the heavy metal levels of tea leaves collected from herbicides applied and non-applied tea plantations, and ultimately to find out any significant difference between herbicides applied and non-applied tea soils and tea leaves in tea lands in Sri Lanka. This slide shows the description of the study area. This study area is the Ambedhan Tea Estates, and it was located in Haputale, Uva province of Sri Lanka. According to the map number 2, the study area consists of well-managed 2 different tea plantation plots. The green color area is named as a control plot, in which the weed management is carried out using manual weed management methods. And the blue color area is the treated plot, in which glyphosate is applied as the weed management method. This slide shows the actual photograph of the study area, the Ambedhan Tea Estate. Now let's move to look at the methodology. The first step of the methodology is the sampling. In this study, soil samples were collected from controlled and treated tea plots. Apart from the controls, soil samples were collected from natural forests and forest plantations as well. Also, tea leaves were collected from both controlled and treated plots. This map shows the sampling locations of soil and tea leaves in the study area. Second step is the chemical analysis. In chemical analysis, firstly, the samples were digested using the method that illustrated in this flow charts. For this, a microwave digestion system has been used. Then the soil and tea leaf samples were analyzed for its potassium, magnesium, copper, zinc, iron, manganese, lead, and cadmium. Also, the soil pH and electrical conductivity were measured. Third step of the methodology is the statistical analysis of the data. According to the statistical analysis, soil quality data were analyzed using one-way ANOVA at 95% significant level. Also, the data of tea were analyzed using students' tea test in order to find out any significant difference between 2 tea plantation plots in terms of heavy metal contamination levels. Now let's move to look at the findings of this study, the results and discussion. This slide shows the results of soil pH, EC, potassium and magnesium levels of each study plot. According to the results in pH, there's no significant difference between controlled and treated plot, but the pH of forest soil is significantly higher than the tea soil. This means the tea soil is comparatively acidic. This might be due to agricultural practices in the tea plantation. Concerning about the soil EC, all the EC values are significantly differ, whereas the EC of the treated plot is recorded as the highest. Also, in potassium and magnesium, there is no significant difference between controlled and treated plot, but the potassium and magnesium of forest soil is significantly higher in tea soil. This might be due to frequent fertilizer application in tea lands. This slide shows the variation of heavy metals in soils. According to the results, there is no significant difference between control plot and treated plot in terms of its copper, manganese, and cadmium levels. But it is apparent that copper, manganese, and cadmium levels of forest soil is significantly lower than tea. Also, it was identified that there is no significant difference between controlled and treated plot in terms of copper, manganese, and cadmium levels. So it can be inferred that this variation has been recorded as the results of agrochemical application, including herbicides such as glyphosates. However, this results reflects that the ferrous, zinc and lead levels of the treated plot is significantly higher, whereas the ferrous, zinc and lead levels of control plot is comparatively low. So it can be inferred that this has been occurred due to herbicides application. This slide shows how heavy metal levels were recorded from green tea and black tea collected from both treated plot and control plot. These results reveal that there is no significant difference between controlled and treated plot in terms of its copper, zinc, manganese, ferrous and cadmium contamination in tea leaves. However, it was revealed that the lead levels of tea collected from treated plot is significantly higher than control plot. So it is clear that tea leaves potentially might be contaminated with lead due to application of herbicides. Now let's move to look at the conclusions. According to the results, due to frequent application of herbicides, iron, zinc and lead levels of soils are increased significantly, and the lead contamination of herbicides applied tea is significantly higher compared with non-herbicides applied tea. Ultimately, we can conclude that based on the findings, the environment and human health might be vulnerable due to the frequent application of herbicides in tea lands. These are the references used for this study, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Yuna results, you continue, or I have some input, or what should we do?
Yes, seemingly we already presented all the video sent to the organizer, and it is time to discuss some questions raised by participants in the chat room.
Yep.
And I think please check the chat room, and then Dr. Lin, you have a good question, also good comment, and also to who is in, yeah, please check the let me read for you first to the Vietnam Ho Chi Minh case, yeah, about the from Loy Rego, yeah, please check it. Good the Vietnam case is about the what is it? Dr. Lin, yeah, Dr. Lin, Nguyen Thi Diu Lin. Please check out the chat room. Could you explain more about why you divide into two themes, such as climate change and the salt intrusion, yeah, in your study? Yeah, question by Tai Nguyen, yeah, another Vietnamese. Dr. Lin, are you still there?
Jocelyn.
Can you let me ask you check it to talk, yeah? Where is here now? Anas, can you allow her to talk?
Sorry, Professor. I just talked with the organizing team, and organizing team has strictly not allowed for the live presentation. And we had clearly mentioned in all emails that there will be no live presentation, only video presentation will be played. So we are extremely sorry to our last participant that we are not going to allow the live presentation. I'm extremely sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. You die, yeah. You cannot present because you supposed to send the video. Now we are now in the question and answer session, and I'd like to invite Dr. Lin to respond. Can you allow Dr. Lin to talk, Nguyen? Ganesh, please.
Yes, they can turn on the mic, Professor.
Where is he? I don't see her. Please turn on your mic, Dr. Lin.
Dr. Lin. Dr. Lin, are you there?
Okay. Let's move to another question for Vietnam also about the concrete, about the, what is it? The question from Loy Rego. Can you check the chat room? I think to Nigel, yeah, Nigel. Don, are you there? Oh. Yeah, he answered already in the chat room. Okay, anyway. Already answered in the chat room to Loy. There you go. And yeah, who else need to be respond? Please check. Dr. Ken.
What's about another question for Razi Nahi? It's about gender, about women.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please also.
Yeah. In my opinion, we can invite women as the inseparable part of in disaster resilient village, or women can contribute in this group based on their capacity expertise. For instance, they can also contribute at educating disaster to children in their family zone. It look like, comment or question to the presenter at the woman empowerment of women in Kinkini, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you see and can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, good day, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity, as well as thank you very much for sharing and asking this question. Indeed, like through our research, what we found was like we identified there's inadequacy of representation of women at the decision making level, specifically in terms of disaster decision making. So that was the initial objective of conducting this study. If it is the case, how to empower, how to bring the vacuum of women leaders as well as women decision makers into the disaster risk reduction decision making. So our study has finally found there are 4 different measures we need to implement in order to fill the gap as well as in order to solve this problem. So accordingly, we have identified through our framework, there are 4 mechanisms we have to introduce. First, women who are working in the disaster area, they need to take certain actions by themselves. That is what we call it as individual intervention, as well as community. From the community, there are certain things to be done. There are certain things to be implemented to assure women empowerment. In addition to the places where the women officers working, say for example, disaster management institutions, government agencies, those who are working in disaster risk reduction activities, the organizational level, they should encourage and they should take certain measures to establish women empowerment. And finally, in addition to individual mechanism, community mechanism, as well as institutional mechanism, there should be a strong legitimate or legislative interventions required to establish women empowerment in disaster risk reduction decision making. So these are the actually four ultimate outcomes that we came across through our framework. So the final framework consists with a kind of document which we aim to introduce to the national level, Sri Lankan context. So based on that, they can take the necessary actions. At the same time, in the future studies, we would like to test this framework not only in Sri Lanka, some other similar countries, and we can finalize and we can generalize the study finding where later on at the national level, international level, this framework can be adopted. I think I answered the question that they raised. Thank you.
Thank you. May I follow the question in terms of women empowerment? In your context in Sri Lanka, is there any cultural barrier that women cannot actually show up at any event or meeting, or they need to be, but they are hidden power, they control men behind the scene? Is that
Yeah, I think in every society, like Sri Lanka is a kind of multicultural as well as multi-ethnic country. So women do certain significant amount of role in almost every aspect of the life. Of course, there are certain rules and not rules. There are certain beliefs and norms which I can't say like which control, but which does not support women into coming into decision making levels. Say for example, like in Sri Lanka, like there are certain rules establishing and supporting them to represent their women in the political system. However, due to certain reasons, the number of women who come into the politics as well as who come into the decision making level is far less compared to the expected level. So there are, of course, a very significant number of cultural norms and beliefs are affecting women empowerment.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Dr. Asita, you have one question or maybe clarification about can you explain a little bit more about the framework of Nvivo you are applying, please, Dr. Asita?
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. So the Nvivo, I'll explain how we did the Nvivo analysis. So each interview was like nearly 1.5 hours of interview. It's like a very big, long time interviews, a set of interviews that we conducted. So all the interviews were recorded, and the recordings, and then we had some of them were in the local languages and some of them were in English. So we had to first translate some of these recordings, and then we had to do the transcribing. So we use Nvivo to transcribe all these interviews. So there are two ways that we can do the transcription. So one is that we can transcribe our interviews into our document and import it into Nvivo, or we can use the Nvivo itself and we can import the interview recording to the Nvivo, and then we can do the transcription there. So I think it's easier in the Nvivo to do the transcription itself using the software. And after you transcribed, I think it indicates all the minutes and seconds that where you were doing all the transcriptions and the questions by question, and then we can start coding these transcriptions. It takes time, a lot of time to do the coding. So once you have identified the codes, and then you can start the classification again using the Nvivo, where you identify the main thematic areas, then where you align your sub-thematic areas and classify them under each theme. So in this presentation, I have presented only very few of the themes. So normally in broader scale, we have identified 14 mechanisms of integrations and 11 issues and 16 themes under the important factors. So there are more. These are like the major ones, but due to the time restrictions, I had to select what are the best like suitable ones for under this theme. So that's how we did the interviews. And then at the end, of course, a validation of these results. So I hope it answers the question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead. Again.
Thank you, Professor Yanaria. Yeah, any others comment or question in the chat? I wish to have a question to I do about the effects of pesticide on tea production. Is there any moment of conventional production for tea to organic one in Sri Lanka? Any alternative solution for that? Are you there?
I'm here. I think you can hear me.
I do. I do. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I repeat.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hello, Ganesh. We have next presentation.
Okay, thanks, Prof.
I'm so sorry to inform that we cannot go ahead with this presentation because we are really at the end of the sessions. Now, I would like to request our co-chairs for their final remarks, and after that, I'll make some house rule announcement.
Okay, thank you, Ganesh. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, thank you very much to all the presenter and for the productive question and answer session. And yeah, we learned many things today from the presentation in Asia, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, and Indonesia. India, okay, it's a very interesting aspect of disaster risk management, yeah, from the community-based perspective, you know, to civil engineering approach in reducing vulnerability and increasing resiliences. Even though we still have some problem of the unsustainable production. So we hope from this session, a new idea of mitigation and managing the risk already proposed it. Thank you very much for the chance to. And Dr. Kin, please go ahead. You have some more comment.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Riyaz, and thank presenters and participants today. I wish to add some point like the presentation. They covered structures measure and non-structure measure. The structure measure focus on engineering like polymer, geopolymer, and building type mapping, and to deal with risks and climate change. And non-structure measure covers for the community-based approach, and especially women empowerment in disaster risk reduction is very important in different society and different culture. And one point that Professor Diana Riza mentioned about unsustainable production of like for example tea in Sri Lanka and saline intrusion in Vietnam that covered a range of risks and climate change impact and adaptation, resilience and adaptation respond to risk and resilience. That's the whole thing. I think very diverse team, and we learned a lot from your research and qualitative and quantitative measure in response to in understanding the risk, climate change adaptation and behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yonchira, and thank you, Dr. Ki. Thank you for being the co-chair of this session and facilitating the session such wonderfully. We really loved the way you coordinated with our participants and presenters to moderate the question and answer session. We have a small request from one of our participants. If it is possible, can we all turn on our videos so that we can have a quick group photo?
Yeah, sure. Please turn on your camera.
Turn on video for a minute and we'll have a screenshot. It's a great memory to be with you all here.
Yeah. Yuda, are you there? Yuda, please turn on your camera.
Hope like next year things will be normal and we can meet each other in person.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah. Now most of us have turned on our video. So those who want to have the picture captured, they can screenshot and take the picture. And okay, before to end the session, I would like to make some announcement. I have been sharing this feedback form link, which is compulsory for all of the participant and presenter to fill it up, because on that basis we will be providing you the certificates. No matter what your position in this conference, either participants, co-chair, keynote speakers, or the co-author of the paper that has been presented, there's a section where you can click your contributions and we'll triangulate the information and we'll provide the certificate on that basis. So with that request, now I'll be signing off from this session, and in this hall 3, we will have a next session. We'll begin our next session at after 15 minutes. Our next session will be focused on disaster resilience and sustainable development, which will be basically focused on vulnerability, resilience, and sustainable development. And we will be having so many wonderful and insightful presentation in the session. I'm looking forward to see you all at after 15 minutes at 3:30 Bangkok time. And thank you all for your valuable presence, and thank you co-chairs, presenter, and participants for extremely engaging discussions and your presentation. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.